current foreign policy is because George Bush is a one world order man, and they're bent towards.
But George Bush Sr., remember, you were some kind of a conspiracy nut if you knew about the New World Order during the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, that was not to be. But George Bush put it out in the open.
Oh, I know. I remember that speech,
Remember the ad that appeared when they started the WTO? They said this was the third leg of the New World Order. And so, and this is why they don't care about our borders.
Right. I mean, they don't care about us.
They care about
either.
Control of the monetary system, the political system, and natural resources. So they don't see it. I mean, this whole idea of personal responsibility in families, that's so bizarre to them. And I imagine some of them, I'm always keeping, how can I give them the benefit of the doubt? They probably figure, a lot of them figure, the world, they need, you're not capable of taking care of yourself.
Right.
They need us. We're going to run your life and run the world. We know what's best, and they believe in world government. But they have no intentions in protecting borders because they
have no intentions of giving that up either. So
that's why
you are a courageous man. You really are. Because
I won't go anywhere without people like you. So we need an army. We need a militia.
Dr. Paul, I have one question on end-of-life issues, and that is, I'm really curious what your position is on whether any legislation should be enacted on to guarantee the right of a patient to hydration and nutrition at all stages of life.
I really don't see much federal intervention on that. Those are difficult issues. I think they should be handled at the state. And even as from a medical viewpoint, there are times that are difficult because I think most people I've ever met, including myself, is that heroic measures at sometimes don't make a lot of sense, and they have not been used over many, many years. Even when I was a medical student, when we didn't have these big discussions, some people, if we were, there was sort of an understanding with families that you didn't put them on heart-lung machines when they had cancer and comatose, and there were times when you just let people go, and not. But that is quite different than dealing with euthanasia.
Right. I'm referring to specifically just hydration and nutrition.
And there should be no denial of that. But I wouldn't make that the exception and say I need a federal law for it. I would say this. No, hydration. Hospice care usually allows for hydration and in a more serene place, keeping people at home, and the patient acknowledges this and signs something. There shouldn't be anything wrong with that. So, there's been some examples on regulations about medications, what you can give, and doctors now are very hesitant to give proper pain medication when people are dying because they're afraid that they're, might be accused of euthanasia. If they get an extra dose because they're really hurting and the patient happens to die, they're afraid they might be charged with murder. And so it's really interfered with the medical care. So I've always thought this was best handled by families and doctors and ethics and local people, and it's worked out pretty well up until recently. I think the challenge has been, and the debate has been, because people started pushing active euthanasia, and that has changed the debate. But I strongly endorse the principle of hospice care, and this would mean that people should have, fluids and all, and made us comfortable. And probably the most comforting thing about when somebody's dying like that and they know it and they've conceded that we're not going to have any more operations, is probably the greatest comfort is going to come from the family. Right. And this is the reason why this is the reason why home care. I remember when my grandfather died, he had a stroke, and they kept him in the house, and the family took care of him. Detailed nursing care. I lived for 3 or 4 months, and it was a big event for me because I was about 10 years old. And then I remember a little bit later on, a neighbor came to my grandmother and said, well, if you had only had him in the hospital, he might have, and was very critical of that. And then I went to medical school, and I thought, I thought back to that, and I thought, that was probably right. Why? He had a stroke. Why wasn't he in the hospital? And then later on, then I got around and I came all the way back to say, wasn't that pretty neat? He had a bad stroke. He wasn't getting better. He was very elderly, and the family came together, and the family were the nurses. Instead of dumping him in a hospital bed someplace and not even being there, so I sort of went around circle on that.
He probably died happy.
Yeah, and that was the case.
Probably wouldn't have gotten better in a hospital.
No, that was the